Hear the gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ according to John. When Jesus spoke again to the people, he said, "I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. You are going to have the light just a little while longer. Walk while you have the light, before darkness overtakes you. Whoever walks in the dark does not know where they are going. Believe in the light while you have the light, so that you may become children of the light. I have come into the world as a light, so that no one who believes in me should stay in darkness." This is the gospel of the Lord. Praise be to you. Would you please be seated? I absolutely love that carol. It's my absolute all-time favorite, that one. You just imagine the liturgical meaning of it coming through the centuries, ancient medieval monks singing it, holding torches, coming down through the ages. Christ, the light of the world. Now, our gospel really speaks about following Christ as the light of the world in the midst of the darkness. And one of the key things about being a Christian is being light in the darkness. And one of the things that I did, and I hope to carry on doing with various people, but one of the things I did previously during our harvest service, which was our last worship together service, was I interviewed Reverend Sandra about her work as a pharmacist. So our next candidate is the other Sandra, Sandra Cook, who works at Imberhorn School. And as we're focusing on this theme, which we focus on at Christingle and First Sunday of Advent, of being the light of Christ in the world, it is so important that we are the light of Christ where we are. And that's why I'm conducting these interviews, because I think it's so good. I mean, it's important, yes, we have a traditional sermon most Sundays, but it's so important to hear from people who are living in the world and working in the world as to how they feel called to be the light of Christ where they are and where they're working. So I'm going to ask you, Sandra.
Okay.
Tell us a bit about yourself. Where were you born and when did you get married and how many children do you have?
I was born in Sutton, in Surrey. I grew up in Beddington, and yes, I lived opposite George Payne's chocolate factory. So every morning I smelt Payne's Poppets chocolate. But unfortunately, unlike Charlie and the chocolate factory, I never got a golden ticket to go in, but never mind, the smell was good enough every morning. I'm a mad Crystal Palace football fan, and I'm sorry, David. And I have a huge passion for the fact that I grew up in an area that was very diverse. My secondary school was a high school, and we took in a huge housing estate which came with all its troubles and everything else. But we also had a lot of fun. And I went to a very small secondary school, and that set me off on really my journey of caring and nurturing. My Christian faith was very much with my local church, St Mary's in the Park, which is also where I had the pleasure of getting married. I married Mick in 1987. He proposed to me after 6 weeks of going out together, but I told him we needed to wait because we were only 18 and 19, and I wanted to be able to make sure I'd got the right man, you see, which I had, and I still have. We were lucky enough to be blessed with a daughter, Katie, who a lot of you do know, and if you don't know, you probably would if you saw her, because she's equally bouncy and buoyant, just like her mum and her dad, and also a mad Crystal Palace fan. And then we moved to Crawley Down in 1993, and after having a very difficult experience at the local church where we were living at the time in Esher in Surrey, my husband worked for the racecourse at Sandown Park, so we had a tied cottage on the racecourse, and we had the opportunity of buying our own home with the help of a government scheme. And so we chose Crawley Down because I'd got 2 members of my family living here, and I'd taken Katie as a baby to the church, and I sat in somebody's pew, which obviously wasn't the done thing in Isha, with a baby. And they're like, okay, you've got a baby, you're sitting in that person's pew. I have to say, the vicar was extremely apologetic, so I tried again. But they weren't very open to having young people and families. Katie was fast asleep, she wasn't even crying. So my faith didn't wobble, but it stood back a little bit. And then I found All Saints at Crawley Down, and I've been here ever since 1993.
That's a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And what is your job title at Inverhorn School?
Oh, yes, it has a lot. So my official job title is Key Stage 3 Admin Manager and Student Welfare. But that does also embrace premises administration because my husband's the estates manager. It also embraces the school transport coordinator. And I was the clerk to the governors for 17 years, but I'd stood down from my role this year to give myself a little bit of a rest and take stock and time after a long time of service. It's the right thing to do because I felt my journey was going elsewhere. So, and now I'm PCC clerk to this lovely joint benefice that we're now seeing. So, yeah.
And how did you come to be working at Inverhorn School?
I was a girl guide and a brownie, and I always carried a first aid certificate. I was fascinated by first aid from a very young age, and I held a first aid certificate at all the places I've worked, the bank, the police, Kingston University, and I finally worked at a dental clinic part-time when I first moved here, and then a job came up for the welfare lady at school, and it fitted in really well because it was term time only and Katie was only 6. So I went to Inverhorn, got the interview and got the job. And of course, then I've now become the school mum. So I'm not just mum to my Katie, but I'm mum to 900 children every year, plus the staff. And I've got a lot of children that I've loved and cared for and their families over the years.
Yeah, I know when one day when we were doing a stall down at the light switch on, there were lots of parents who knew you from being at the school themselves. What did you do before that?
Well, before
you
went to
went
school, I was a receptionist at St Faith's Dental Clinic. Because of my first aid certificate, I was able to apply, and I used to help people that were extremely nervous coming to the dentist, and they'd stopped doing anaesthesia in the hospitals for vulnerable patients, and the clinic was set up. It was just in the start of it. So yes, I've seen quite my fair share of poor teeth in the world, I would say.
Wow. Tell us about your work at Inverhorn. I mean, what are the strengths and the things that you enjoy about your job?
I love the fact that young people keep me young. I love the challenge they bring. I love the feisty boys that grunt at you first thing in the morning because they didn't want to get out of bed. I love the girls that haven't got a clue how their hair went that morning. I love the fun the little ones bring when they first come up from primary. Absolutely, oh my goodness, this is all so big and new, and nurturing them through. And my favourite time of year is year 11, when I watch all those little people have grown into wonderful young people that come out for their prom all dressed and grown, and seeing their achievements as they go on to take their place in the world.
That's quite a process. What would you say to someone who's wanting to work in a school?
Look at it, think about it. Do you have a passion for young people and learning? And if you have all those answers ticked with a yes in your head, go for it. Because until you've been there and done it, there's nothing quite like it. It's not the most, it's not paid the work best if you're a support staff member, but actually money isn't the reward in this job. It's watching young people develop into the kind of human beings we so want for this world and so need, actually.
And what are some of the challenges that you face in your work? I know you've had a lot to do with COVID.
Oh yes, and still am. It's barriers. Barriers to learning is a big saying at the moment, but actually I've seen it for a long time. You know, young people that come from backgrounds where things haven't been easy for their families, so therefore their opportunities aren't as great. The first school trip that somebody ever goes on that's never been away from home before, and they come back absolutely gleaming with a shining light because they've experienced something, makes it so worthwhile. Families we help support through lockdown who were really struggling, so many families locally. I mean, we live in quite a good area by the standards of some of the areas I grew up in Croydon, but there was still a lot of need and poverty because the airport was shut, so people lost their jobs. And our village is really good at caring, but sometimes we're not so good at seeing, and we need to see, and people won't tell you because of pride. So if you see a family out and things aren't 100%, don't sort of, why aren't they sorting that out? There could be a very good reason, and I hope I try to reach out to those that perhaps need it but don't actually recognise they need it.
Well, that comes very neatly to my next question. How does your faith make a difference to your work?
I don't think I could do my job the way I do it without my faith. Our school motto is CARE, and it stands for compassion, achievement, respect and endeavour. And my faith definitely ticks all of those. My strength and knowledge that even through the most difficult and challenging times, sometimes just stopping and waiting and having really good people around you helps you through. And people that are like-minded and have a good faith make that a very easy thing to do. And without faith, I don't know actually how some people do get through, and sadly they don't. So as long as I can keep showing that care, respect to the children, and you have to give respect to children to earn it back again. And sometimes we're all very good. I wish they'd just behave. Sometimes you need to find out why they're not behaving. And I'm fortunate enough to be in a position to get to that sometimes and then try to make it better.
So what for you is the essence of being a Christian in the workplace?
Love. Love. Jesus tells us to love everybody. And that's exactly what I try to do, is love and care for everybody. They might not want it, they might not think they need it, but if you just wait patiently, eventually, even the hardest stone sometimes becomes a nice soft squidgy sponge. And some of my very feisty boys, if I see them out and about, if you get an "all right, Mrs. Cook," and it's a lovely deep "all right, Mrs. Cook," most of them have gone through the butchers, working as butcher boys. You know, our local community is really good at picking up children that perhaps can't do all the academic stuff. You know, and academics great, but actually practical's even greater. Mick and I really pride ourselves on the fact that when it comes to work experience day, he'll get asked, "Mick, we've got a student that actually isn't going to fit very well anywhere. Do you think he could work alongside you for a bit?" And he's had a couple of girls as well. Two of them have gone on to become gardeners and become landscape gardening and got their own businesses. Two of them have gone on to become professional builders and have their own businesses very successfully. And sometimes it's just finding the other way to do things. And that's the pleasure of working in a school in the way we do.
And what will you be doing this time tomorrow?
Oh, probably sorting out the COVID tracker again. Oh, I do love my job on a Monday morning. So all those cases that have come through over the weekend, and the worry that the news has given everybody with this new strain. The children and adults have all been through so much, and tomorrow we see having to wear masks again, and some of those children struggle with that. But just being there, reassuring, encouraging, trying to support and to understand, having a cup of tea ready for anybody that might need it, and a COVID-safe biscuit treat box should the staff get too low in the day and need, "Have you got anything in your box?" "Yes, I've got something, have it," you know. But that's what it's all about.
And what are your hobbies and your interests?
Hobbies? Oh, goodness. I've been a very big, strong believer in guiding and all its principles that it's seen me through. So I'm now with the Trefoil Guild, which I really, really love. and it's like being a grown-up Girl Guide. So last week we all did crafting. So I literally went and did lots of crafts, which was just like being a guide all over again, and I loved it. I have a new granddaughter, and I have to say she is my absolute star in my life at the moment. And I hope I don't bang on too much. I'm sorry, everybody. My friends, my very dear friend Amanda. Yeah.
And how can we pray for you?
Just let me keep doing what I do.
Well, thank you, Sandra.
Thank you.
I mean, I think all those qualities that you've spoken about at school, you bring to church. And I know we and I very much appreciate the fact that sometimes when we get to something that's really complicated and challenging, you just seem to have this way of being able to work out what the main principles are and sort of work out how the process needs to go from there. And I'm very grateful for that, and I'm very grateful for your support and all the things that you do around to keep things going. I'm very grateful for that. And for the many, many years that you've been part of this community. And as we join the two communities together, that will be a joined community, and your support for that as well.
Absolutely.
So thank you very much for everything that you do. And I know what you have said has been a testimony to us all.
Yeah.
And a reminder of how, as Christians, we are called to be the light of Christ.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Sandra.
No, you're very welcome.